The trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time shall be no more, and the morning breaks eternal, bright and fair, when the Savior of earth shall gather.
All right, well, welcome to our third video. We are going to do some preparatory work for our class on Sunday. Again, these are flipped classes, so hopefully you're watching these videos, you're getting some stuff out of it, and it'll help you start thinking about what we're going to talk about on Sunday, which is chapter 20 of Revelation, and this concept of the Millennium, which is in here, which there are just probably 1,000 different there's 1,000 different ways to think about the Millennium that people have thought of over the years. We are not going to explore all of them. What we do want to do is use the method that we've been talking about all along, which is understand the context of Revelation, the biblical context, and the cultural context to better grasp what John is saying in his apocalyptic and prophetic letter to the churches. First, what we want to do is think about this idea of keys. And so in this chapter, there's an angel that has the keys to the abyss. And keys, we need to remember, is some sort of authority. In Revelation 1:18, we're told that Jesus is the one who has the keys. And so Jesus having the keys is symbolic of his authority. Nobody gives him these things. He's the one who has them. In Revelation 9:1, the fallen star, who we later find out is an angel, is given a key to the abyss, and he's the one that brings the locusts out of the abyss. And so he's given kind of this authority, but it's at some point taken away. And so all this to just point out that this idea of keys is a not just a sign of access, but a sign of authority in the ancient world. The abyss. So the next thing that we should talk about is the abyss. So if you remember from last week, we talked about this three-tiered structure of the cosmos that ancient people thought about. There's a heaven above, there's an earth below, and then there is this chaotic sea or underworld that's beneath everything. So the abyss is really that idea, is this idea of this underworld, this murky place. It's kind of a place of non-existence, or a kind of a shady area where the dead go. And so we don't have a lot of information about it in the Bible, but what we do have is John's imaginative telling of what happened, what goes there, right? So we'll be thinking about that more on Sunday. Now we're going to read Isaiah 26 verse 16 through 27 verse 1. I think this will give us a helpful way, because this is a clear reference that John is making back to Isaiah in this work. Lord, they came to you in their distress. When you disciplined them, they could barely whisper a prayer. As a pregnant woman about to give birth writhes and cries out in her pain, so were we in your presence, Lord. We were with child, we writhed in labor, but we gave birth to wind. We have not brought salvation to the earth, and the people of the world have not come to life. But your dead will live, Lord. Their bodies will rise. Let those who dwell in the dust wake up and shout for joy. Your dew is like the dew of the morning. The earth will give birth to her dead. Go, my people, enter your rooms, and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until his wrath has passed by. See, the Lord is coming out of his dwelling to punish the people of the earth for their sins. The earth will disclose the blood shed on it. The earth will conceal its slain no longer. In that day, the Lord will punish with his sword, his fierce and great and powerful sword, Leviathan, the gliding serpent, Leviathan, the coiling serpent. He will slay the monster of the sea. So this Leviathan is a chaos monster, a dragon. It's kind of the same idea in Greek. And I think this metaphor is in full view that God is bringing about a resurrection, and in order to do that, he has to slay the chaos that brings about death, and he is going to bring about resurrection. And it says there in verse 19 that the earth will give birth to her dead, right? So the earth, which holds the dead in the abyss, is going to give birth and let the dead come back to life. The biggest thing here is in this chapter is this metaphor of the sealing away of the dragon for 1,000 years, of Satan for 1,000 years, so he can't deceive the nations, it says. We'll definitely explore this on Sunday, but I think it's helpful to kind of consider, well, what does that mean if Satan can't deceive the nations? Hopefully we have become familiar with John's view on spiritual forces and spiritual evils. It seems that he's kind of made this argument that the two beasts, so you can kind of think about the first beast as the emperor, and the second beast is the emperor's cult. This false religion is influencing the emperor, or is getting people to worship the emperor. Both of those were created at the behest of Satan. And so if we lock Satan away, then I think what John's saying is that if we can lock away that demonic, that satanic influence, then we have some sort of peace and rest for God's people, because there won't be that evil influence. The next thing to consider is okay. So during this 1,000 years, we see that there are Christians so people that have followed Christ, these faithful witnesses that have died, these martyrs, they're resurrected, and they judge and they rule. So first off, they're judging and ruling with Jesus, and judging and ruling for an ancient person are the same thing. The rulers are the Supreme Court and the executive branch. Like they're everything all in one. So they would expect that if you were given power to rule, then you would also be a judge. We can think about 2 Corinthians 6, 1 through 3. Paul has this same idea that he says, don't you know that you'll judge angels, right? And so he's encouraging them to develop their character, to develop their wisdom, because they're in this resurrection state. They're going to be expected to rule and reign on behalf of Jesus. In Genesis chapter 1, 27 to 28, this idea of reigning on God's behalf, ruling on God's behalf, is tied to bearing His image. And so it seems like, especially in the next two chapters, but it's already begun. We're already well into Revelation, where John is starting to create allusions and ties all the way back to Genesis 1 and 2. And so I think there's this very cool arc that flows through the whole Bible, and John does an amazing job connecting the pristine garden at the beginning of the Bible with this garden city at the end of the Bible. And we're going to explore that more next week. The last thing to mention is just the same idea in Revelation 1, 6, and 5, 10. Yeah, so this is just, again, Revelation 1, 6 is where he mentions that we're going to be this kingdom of priests that serve, and then in Revelation 5:10, we are the kingdom of priests who are going to reign on the earth. Again, this same idea of reigning alongside Jesus, without this satanic influence. So the last portion that I just want to prepare us for is this idea of resurrection. So at the end of this passage, we have this idea of Gog coming back, and then we have, and we also have this concept of resurrection mixed in here. I want to read Ezekiel chapter 37, 24 through 28. But before I do that, I just want you to understand the context of this passage. So the beginning of Ezekiel chapter 37 is called the Valley of Dry Bones. And so if you're not familiar with that, Ezekiel is led into this desert valley where there's nothing alive. It's just desert, and then there's a bunch of dead bones, so dead people, and there's nothing there. And then God tells Ezekiel to prophesy to the bones, and it brings the bones to life. So God resurrects the dead people that are in the valley. And then in chapter 38, we have Ezekiel. He brings a prophecy to the nation of Gog, or the leader of Gog. We don't actually know who Gog is. We think, you can look him up in the history books, but it's just not there. Some people think that, I guess most scholars think that Gog is probably a made-up kind of super bad nation that Ezekiel used in order to kind of as a metaphor to preach against all the bad nations that he was trying to sum up into one. But right in between that passage and 37, which is about resurrection, is this passage here. Ezekiel 37:24. My servant David will be king over them, and they will all have one shepherd. They will follow my laws and be careful to keep my decrees. They will live in the land I gave to my servant Jacob, the land where your ancestors lived. They and their children and their children's children will live there forever, and David my servant will be their prince forever. I will make a covenant of peace with them. It will be an everlasting covenant. I will establish them and increase their numbers, and I will put my sanctuary among them forever. My dwelling place will be with them. I will be their God. They will be my people. Then the nations will know that I, the Lord, make Israel holy, when my sanctuary is among them forever. So hopefully, with these two very tight allusions that he uses in chapter 20 to resurrection and also the nation of Gog, hopefully it's clear that it's highly likely that John wants us to be thinking about this covenant promise through David, his shepherd, king, that he's establishing his sanctuary among his people forever. So Jesus should be right on the edge of our mind as we read through this passage here. So that is all the preparatory work. So hopefully that all made sense. If it didn't, leave a comment, send me an email, and hopefully we can clear it up. We'll see you on Sunday, nice and early. Thanks. Bye.